Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guildhouse. This is a weekly podcast in which I, your host, Matthew Whitby, is all alone. Typically I'm with a guest to chat about tabletop RPG stuff, but I'm all alone this week. Just because I just wanted to chat, just you and me. This is like we're gonna big up the parasocial relationship this week. But no, was every year, like for the podcast, we're now entering the third year of the Dungeon Masters Guild House podcast. And I like to give myself like, was it like one episode where it's I just chat about how things are going. As like a time capsule, like a bit of a diary. But also just put myself out there a little bit more. And I clearly in the 2 years that I've been doing this, I haven't grown tired of listening to my own voice. But honestly, it's been a wild journey. I had 2 years ago, had you told me I would have been keeping up to this for over 100 plus episodes, I would have said that's unbelievable. So I am beyond humbled by everyone who's kind of supported me in this journey, and I'm gonna keep it going. Like I think I think I'll see how I do at the end of was it 156. Once I get to that episode, I think I'll do another assessment. And yeah, I think I'm thinking about changing up the format a little bit, and this is probably like the way that I'm going to broaching that topic and going to chat about you potentially like some of the changes and generally just get feedback. I'd love doing the deep dives into like a creator's their creative process and how they kind of come up with ideas. It's been fascinating, and there's still so many people that I would love and kind of be honored to kind of speak to. And I'm kind of happy to keep the podcast like that, but I guess sometimes I'm also curious about like if there's anything else that it could offer in the sense of stemming out into designing on the fly, working with my guests to kind of come up with something. And I think I may try and do that. So I think this year there's gonna be the first year that I'm gonna start maybe inviting people back to be returning guests. And just kind of playing around with the format a little bit because geez, 100 doing something 100 times, it's a lot. I'm worried about the podcast feeling almost too formulaic. But I'd love to hear like if you guys if the people listening have any thoughts about that. Please do comment at me on Twitter at Whitby Writes, leave comments in the video description or wherever you can kind of find me, and just let me know like what you enjoy about the podcast, what you think could change. Because I'm always kind of looking for the opportunity to kind of change or grow. Which leads nicely into kind of my segue of like I'm on the hunt for guests always. Like the guest hunt never ends. So if you yourself design tabletop RPGs, not just for the Dungeon Masters Guild or D&D in particular, at all, get in contact. Honestly, I would be honored to literally chat with anyone who's kind enough to kind of dedicate their time to natter with some random dude in the UK. And that's the thing. I think like the benefit of the show is showing such a wide range of voices and just kind of hearing about people's getting started and things that knowledge that they can pass on to the people kind of listening. So yeah. Or alternatively, if there's someone that I haven't had the chance to speak to, who you think that person is very cool, let me know and I will reach out. Again, I'm privileged to be in the sense that like a lot of the guests I get on the podcast, it is about a 50-50 split of me reaching out to people and people asking me if to come on the podcast, and it's nice. I like that kind of equilibrium we kind of have. Yeah, so then I guess kind of while I've got you here then, some of the stuff that I kind of want to talk about, I kind of wanted to give it like a bit of a life update. Obviously the background hasn't changed, so clearly nothing too drastic is kind of happening in my life. But no, I'm in the final year of my PhD. So it is March as I'm recording this, and my funding runs out in September. So the amount of months I have left is running out, and I'll be honest, it's a stress point in my life. And I don't know how well I've kind of like voiced that, or maybe with like people who haven't been like are relatively new listeners, but they might not know this. I study video games for a living. I do a computer science PhD. where my topic is looking at how games can be used to challenge people's perspectives. And recently, I've had the privilege to kind of work with Take This, who are a mental health charity, who, funnily enough, have a lot of kind of ties with the tabletop RPG space, in creating a white paper, which is talking about like challenging people's perspectives around like mental health, and particularly how we can design games to intentionally tackle the stigma in around kind of mental health within media. But other than that, I'm just like, I love games. It's kind of the reason why I study them, and just looking at how we can use those to challenge or challenge the way that people think or feel. I think is awesome. And my work is finally coming to an end point where I can see the thesis kind of all come together. So I'm very excited about it. It's obviously also a huge, a good amount of stress. I think if anyone, if anyone ever has done a PhD and stuff like that, it's not difficult. It's just a lot. I mean, there are like some, there's just a lot to it. And obviously that has taken a good amount of time from doing like tabletop RPG writing, and just other stuff. So sometimes I try not to kick myself too much because I'm juggling too much at once. But yeah, and come September, once I've submitted my thesis, I've done my thesis defense fire. It kind of opens a new chapter for me about what I'm going to be doing. I would love to still work within in some capacity as a tabletop RPG writer. I don't think that's going to change. I think I'm still, even like as a hobbyist thing, I'm still going to be writing stuff. But I don't know, maybe there's opportunities to try and take it full time. Maybe there's a place within the games industry for me. I honestly don't know. And that's something that we'll find. We'll find out together, or hopefully I'll figure it out. I'm not going to try and put the onus on the listener. But talking of, I guess generally of some of the stuff that I've kind of been working on recently, some exciting things are coming. At the moment, I would say I've got about 2 active projects that I'm kind of working on and still kind of require like writing on like a day-to-day basis. I'm working on a really, really awesome vulnerabilities project, which is revamping vulnerabilities. And I'm working on that with Kai Linder, who is a bit, I'll be honest, he's a bit of a devil. We've shaken that project to kind of include a lot. So the scope has grown slightly, but it's going to be all the better for it. It's one of the things where we're taking the steps now to kind of, if this goes well, if the reception to this revamping and evolution of the D&D 5e vulnerability system goes well, we can kind of continue to make content along the same sort of vein, which is really good. Other than that, there is also the Icewind Dale items and encounter series, or just the item and encounter series is kind of continue with Icewind Dale, which has slowed progress on my end. I think it's going to have I'm going to be writing, I think I have 35 encounters planned, and I'm something like 2/3 of the way through. I had quite a regimen of doing one a day. That regimen has slipped slightly. So maybe I'm doing this to hold myself accountable and going to get that done. But no, I've had the honor of working alongside Anne Gregerson, who is contributing a few encounters as well. So that's another amazing kind of thing of shaping and working with the hardcovers books. And then other than that, there's about 10 or so projects that I'm involved in. That is literally, my involvement is done. I've done my writing, it's been edited, all the feedback. We're just kind of waiting for kind of like publication or the next kind of steps. Things like what is it? Let's go down the list. Comments and Cockpits. The first book of that is now kind of live. But all my involvement and stuff like that, all the cool stuff that I got to do with that is in the second volume, which is this kind of like the space and mech side. There is the huge undertaking. Actually, I think this is me kind of announcing the project, really, which I'm very excited to do. The Doomed Forgotten Realms. This was something where ages ago, I think it was a chat with James Introcasso. We talked about the concept, and a little while afterwards, Scott kind of approached me. I was like, hey, this is a kind of cool idea. I don't know if this is something, I'm working around with, any kind of thoughts and stuff like that. And I jumped at the opportunity to kind of get involved in that project. And while he kind of went off and wrote the Rise of Vecna adventure chain, which is on the DMsGuild now, I had the task of doing a gazetteer for the Sword Coast. And the premise of the Doomed Forgotten Realms is literally kind of what it says. Like, imagine every bad ending of the hardcover going wrong. The Tiamat returns. The demons rise out of the Underdark. Baldur's Gate is sucked into the hell. All these horrible things. And just what shape the world takes after going through all this kind of turmoil. And I've been beyond fortunate to kind of have that project done. It was a huge kind of up. It was basically, that was my COVID project. And to be working alongside not one editor but two, Rob and Laura, who have both of them have just been kind of incredible to kind of work alongside. And I think it's kind of fundamentally shaped a good amount of how I approach kind of writing projects in the future. And they basically took something that was it was a COVID project. It was rough. It was and dutifully kind of went through it and kind of made it something that I'm exceptionally proud of. And that's going to be coming under the Quill and Cauldron. And Mark Alderfish is kind of the what is it, like it's kind of the chain in which it's going to kind of be published in. And it's over to layout now. It is so close to coming out, and it's going to be just a huge weight off my shoulder to just have this and showing it to the world, because I'm so excited about it. It's honestly amazing. And I'm biased, but yeah. And then other stuff as well. I've got like adventures out and about. I've done like a bunch of like little subclasses. I've written a huge number of encounters for a bunch of other projects that are just working their way through the kind of creative process. So it would be nice to kind of I don't know, after I've done with the vulnerabilities with Kai and the encounters that I'm currently writing on, I don't really know what's next. I think I would love to. I think I'm going to probably throw myself into one or two kind of like collaborations, just because I kind of like the structure that kind of gives me. And also, again, one of my most recent adventures that I've kind of been working on is fellow project, which is the Candlekeep attack of the Astral Sound Devourers. I don't know the ways that I'm really proud of the project. It just hasn't sold well, and I think I can kind of muse as to potentially why. But I think it's an adventure that's tied to like a niche product itself, the Candlekeep, which are a series of one shots. I'm not sure if the adventure kind of sells its identity of what it is and what it offers that much. But that's the gambit that you run and stuff at. I think regardless of it selling well or not, I'm really proud of it. The Tome of Silence adventure. Fantastic to work alongside Sabriel, who can handle kind of the editing front, and the last few times we've been working together, it's been an absolute pleasure. As well as kind of commissioning art from my good friend Law, and a lot of learning steps in that project and stuff like that. But I think this is something that I talk about a lot, in particular the guests and stuff like that. That you can't attach the value of a project to its sales. I'm proud of it. I think it holds up well. I think it's a fun adventure. I've run it with friends and stuff like that. And so that's it. I mean, that's just obviously, like, I think part of me sometimes still holds a lot of the stuff that I released to like the standards of Vola's Guide to Getting Murdered, just because that wasn't a title fairly early in like my career, and generally received to a kind of good reception. But it do be like that sometimes. I don't know if there's really like a more or something, but because comparatively as I'm fairly happy with how my long sail Saddle Gazetteer has kind of gone. But those are two different styles of projects, and I think I have mentioned before that adventures feel like a harder sell on the DMsGuild unless they are kind of hitting a very kind of particular niche, or they're kind of like a very stylized one shot. And again, I think I want to use it maybe as opportunity to try some of the more eventually content, and maybe lean into kind of like dungeon craft stuff, because I do like the sound of it and it looks really cool. And just working within kind of like strict word limits, and just like I've got 6,000 words. Let's write an adventure using it. I'm not going to go too much over it and stuff like that. This has to be as because then one, that's good practice for like working with like, commission work, and kind of like collaborations. And it's less of a time commitment for me, because I think sometimes it's easy to kind of fall down a rabbit hole and want to invest all the time there is into kind of like a project. But yeah, so that's it. I'll see exciting stuff on the horizon. I think the vulnerabilities in Icewind Dale are looking like to be released next month. Fingers crossed, Doomed, the Doomed Forgotten Realms Sword Coast Gather series released this month. It's kind of up in the air. Again, I'm not rushing it. This is a thing where I've been so patient about it. I'm not rushing it at this final point, because I just want it to be so good, and I want a really good kind of. I would really like a nice reception to it. But that's pretty much it. That's kind of where I'm at creatively. That's kind of where I'm at in terms of the podcast. And I thought, rather than just end it there, it was just I've had like a 20-minute ramble. I thought, let's do a design exercise. And let's just work. Basically, this, you can tell how unplanned this is. But basically, going on Kobold Fight Club. One, that's a fantastic resource for kind of like a very quick, rough guide of like, okay, we have this many players, this level, can they kind of face this? And I use this, I get a good amount of time to write random encounters on like a weekly basis, which I found a very useful exercise. I think just that kind of like consistency of working with writing the D&D format was useful. And you can look at things like a bunch of people who kind of do these weekly exercises, even if there's not like huge kind of like social media presence or response to it and stuff like that. Doing it for yourself, it builds up, and particularly as well, if you do like an encounter a week, by the end of the year you have 52 encounters, and that's bundled out into a project and call it a day. But so what I'm going to do is I've got 4 level 1 players. I'm going to press random medium encounter, so it's going to be a little bit of a spicy one. And we'll figure out what we get, and how we can kind of tie it all together. So I've done it, and I've got a Dretch and a Shadow. So I know what a Shadow is. A Shadow is those nasty buggers who drain your health. Whereas a Dretch is it's one of them demons. So watch me live. Dretches are among the weakest demons. Repulses self-loathing creatures doomed to spend eternity in a state of perpetual discontent. Wow. So we have our 2 monsters. We know we're going up against first level players, so this has the kind of potential to be quite nasty. But I guess the important question is okay. So what I do like about doing these kind of random encounters in this design is you have a lot of leeway. So the adventure, like the encounter, changes dramatically if it is the Shadow fighting the Dretch and the player stumble across it, or if in some way are these 2 creatures kind of working alongside, collaborating in some way. And you have so many options. And I do, again, so my mind is immediately kind of latching on this kind of like self-loathing, perpetual discontent about the Dretch. They speak abyssal and telepathy. But I do, again, one this is kind of another common trend for some of my encounters as well, is sometimes you have like beasts in the encounters. Sometimes giving them common or magically making them talk, it just adds a little bit of spice. And this Dretch is giving me big Eeyore vibes from Winnie the Pooh, of this very sad kind of just discontent Dretch. So what I'm thinking is maybe we give them the common language. This is a Dretch that has been I guess misplaced from the abyss. How exactly? We can kind of think about that. Classic things. Summoner. So it was summoned by a I don't know, some sort of cultist summoner. for whatever through series of events, this Dretch has kind of lost their group of Dretches that they were summoned with, as well as their kind of like friends. So I imagine this would be a good encounter like within like a kind of like a dungeon, that kind of like classic kind of fumbling through room by room. But how do we kind of incorporate the shadow? And I kind of like the idea that the shadow has kind of realized that that it can kind of benefit from, there's not much vitality to kind of get from a Dretch. They're just in the nature of the thing. So by lurking within its shadow and following it on its kind of adventures, it's kind of managed to kind of bit by bit sustain itself. And maybe that can be a bit part of like why the Dretch is so discontent. It could be like, oh, I used to have a lot of friends, or just like everything I seem to meet just like dies. And that can be a little bit of like an interesting encounter from like the party as well, because as they encounter the Dretch, one, it's a talking Dretch. It's just kind of there sad and kind of moping it. And the players may feel kind of like compelled to try and like try and brighten the mood of the Dretch, where bit by bit it reveals the fact that there is this shadow lurking. And then you can have that nice kind of dynamic of potentially the Dretch gets protective of its shadow. And if you can kind of convince the Dretch that no, your shadow isn't meant to be like that, it's trying to kill people, you can kind of there's a few kind of like social checks there. You can potentially implant clues when the Dretch talks about, the people they used to travel with or the other Dretches, where you can see the fact and you can do medicine checks based on clearly these things have been drained, their strength has been drained by a shadow, as kind of clear as can be. And that, that in itself is a pretty kind of neat and contained little encounter. I think, yeah, no, I mean, I could go on a little bit more, but I don't want to. No, it's like, I keep placing my hands on my hips and just saying, no, I don't want to. No, I think that works. I like that, and kind of like the very low charisma kind of ties into this kind of like Eeyore vibe. And alternatively, again, you can kind of play with it a considerably more, where it's not even a Dretch. Like, it doesn't have to be a Dretch. It could just be a reskinned Warlock's familiar, something akin to that, or something where it still uses the same stat block or something like that, but it doesn't have that same kind of like demonic aspect to it. So the party may be more inclined to kind of like trust it. It just may be like, yeah, just a sad little familiar who's like, my my creator died, I'm so sad, I'm I feel like I'm making light of like a very sad situation of like these very repulsive self-loathing creatures, but in this case it's not their fault that everyone they meet dies. It's the little undead shadow that's kind of causing havoc. Yeah, no, I'm very chuffed with that. Not to pat myself on the back too much, but yeah, honestly, so that would be something that I would do with a guest. We would get a random encounter. We maybe would go up, escalate levels bit by bit, and just kind of bounce around that idea. I think it could be fun. I had fun doing it, and that's all that matters. But also because like it kind of brings in that kind of like creativity on the fly, and that way, listeners, you can kind of come away with it, and you have like an encounter that you can, obviously adjust and kind of shift up for your own kind of plays, or use as is. Obviously it's not game ready. It might need a little bit of tweaking, but take a Dretch, take a shadow, throw them in a room, throw your party at them, see what happens. And honestly, that's it really. I definitely don't want this podcast to be the same length as one of my chats with the guest, because he's just me, and I'm I'm only so entertaining for so long. But alternatively, if you did like this, let me know, and maybe I can not feel so bad about not getting a guest in time, and maybe you could just listen to me. I don't know, just this is basically I'm call for, talk to me about it. Tell me what you think about the podcast. Tell me what you like. Tell me what I. If you want to be on the podcast, let me know. I just it's nice to hear that people are like engaging with the stuff that I create. But other than that, I mean, as always, I have been Matthew Whitby. You can find me at Whitby Writes on Twitter. There'll be a link to some of the stuff that I've been creating in the description, particularly the Tome of Silence. It hasn't sold too well, but maybe this could change. Maybe I can guild some people. No, have a look. The preview, I have a full preview on literally all of my products. Just because I'm a big kind of proponent of letting people try before they buy. And if it's your type of thing, it is a very kind of like self-contained one shot. If you kind of like the themes it's kind of working with to kind of challenge your party, yeah, have a look and maybe pick it up. And yeah, if you do, let me know what you think. But yeah, I hope you have a good evening. I'm trying to figure out how to end the podcast now that I'm all by myself. I'm just gonna walk off stage with a little jig. There you go. Oh, it's over.